right?
Alrighty, thanks everyone for being here with me. And I am Francoise Bowen. I have someone special with me on this series of which is Lights, That Camera, The Safety. And our focus discussion tonight is about sales, customer service, leadership. And we have a beautiful guest lined up. And I'm starting with none other than Mr. Gregory Shillingford. Now, many of you might be wondering, who is Mr. Gregory Shillingford? Now, Mr. Gregory Shillingford, okay? Let me first say this. We met, can I say donkey moons ago? we met a long time. And this was when I was working at Cable and Wireless Line.
Right.
Cable and Wireless Line, and I was the account manager at that time. And it's so funny that my then head, Mr. Melford Nicholas, he had positioned me at the Woods branch, the Woods branch location. Mr. Shillingford came in, I was watching him. I'm standing off where I was, I'm watching him. He went to the supervisor at the store, he needed some assistance. He went to this, he went to that. And then at the point, it was like, I need help. I really need help. And I said, you know what, I have to step in. No, somehow I have to step in because what Mr. Shillingford was asking for was so simple to me, but it was so difficult for everybody else. And right there, I said, okay, Mr. Shillingford, how can I help you? I hear complaints, blah, blah, blah. And so from right then on, he was like, what happened? Nobody can't be like Miss Boyle? Like, really? Nobody couldn't get this done? And from then on, we just held that bond right through up until now. And it's so important to have a healthy customer service. This is so important because you just don't know that what you give to a customer, it can be a return of not just an investment in financial, but also in other means. And what if I wasn't kind to him? I wouldn't have him here right now. I can tell you that much. What if even throughout the years, being his account manager, I would not have him. So it pays that wherever you're working to be kind, really be kind to that customer. You just don't know. Mr. Shillingford, welcome. It's such an honor to have you, really an honor to have you. Now I'm going to read your bright bio. There's some persons who may not know exactly what you have accomplished, and I will let everyone know exactly what you have accomplished. You're a graduate of the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, with a Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture. You're the former CEO of the National Agrochemicals Fertilizer Company in Trinidad. You're also the former CEO of Dominica Banana Marketing Corporation, former CEO West Indies Cricket Board, former CEO KFC Antigua Limited, former CEO of Windward Islands Volcano, Board Director of Antigua Hotel and Tourism Association, Board Director West Indies Cricket Board, Board Director Dominica Social Security, Director and current Chair of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, Director of Dominica Bureau of Standards, Director of Dominica Solid Waste Corporation, Certified Company Director, former construction project manager, and of course, you have the downtime. He is also a farmer. Obviously, you're going to be on all these important organizations. There must be some way that I need to be able to relax, and being a farmer is a beautiful way. It's a beautiful one. I'm going to start off with a few questions to Mr. Shillingford, and they're not in any means of order to him. And I hope that our conversation will be one that edifies you and one that you can run with in your entrepreneurship. And my first question is, why is it important to honor shareholders Why is it important to honor shareholders?
Well, Francois, the shareholders are the owners of companies, enterprises, and they put up their capital to launch the company. They engage the CEOs. They also appoint board of directors to manage companies' oversight on their behalf. And they set the, what you would call the objectives for the company. They also establish the values of the company and the culture. So without shareholders, there are no companies, right? So in other words, they are putting their money where their mouths are, and they're saying that we have this idea of what we'd like to do, either individually or as a group of shareholders. And, they are the starting point in making things happen in terms of business enterprises.
Oh, okay. So somebody like me that maybe have a what you call a snacket, I should have shareholders and all of that. Should I or just run
No, you are the shareholder because it's your snacket. But you may feel that what do I need to get to a certain state of affairs where I'm successful, where I can sustain my business. So you may feel, okay, I'm competent, and have the capacity, but sometimes it's good to have another view. So you may have another shareholder, or you may have a director, or if you do not have all the resources to go to where you would like to be in terms of expanding your business, you may invite other shareholders to be part of your business, in order to take it to a different height.
Oh, okay. So this now leads me to values versus culture. You have staff values clashes with company values, because you spoke in depth about shareholders. You have the staff culture clashes with company values. Then you have the company culture clashes with staff values. Shareholders' values clashes with company values. My question is, values versus culture contribute to sometimes poor customer service and sometimes good customer service. Is that the case?
Say so. But I think it's a question of when you establish values, that it should be publicized among your entire organization. And in putting values together, both the shareholders, the management, and your staff should also, jointly agree to them, because without either of the components, without the shareholders, the company cannot proceed. Without the staff and the management, the company cannot proceed. And you need everybody working as a team, right? Sharing the values and the culture you want to project for your company. You want it done jointly by everybody.
Okay. Now I remember my then CEO, Mr. Davidson Charles, and we will always have our staff meeting, general staff meeting, or if it's not a general staff meeting, he will have meeting with the different departments. And I was in the sales and business development. And one of the things he always stressed on is that even though we're focused on ensuring that our customers feel at home, we also still have that obligation to the shareholders, to what they're requesting. And sometimes, honestly, Mr. Shillingford, sometimes I am at these meetings when Mr. Charles is holding his staff meetings, and I'm thinking to myself, what's up with these shareholders? What's up with all these demand? The demanding is demanding. And I'm like, this don't make no kind of sense. It to me never did. But then gradually, when he constantly have the staff meetings, you then understand more and more why we have to strike a balance between honoring our shareholders, honoring the directors, honoring our staff, then of course our colleague, because if the colleagues are not working together, then obviously whatever the values are, there's no way we're going to give out that output that the shareholders as well are looking for. And it really struck for me something that I still practice today about respect for all. Because that way, when you have respect for all, you also get the job done as well. And this leads now to my next question, which has to do with supervisors. If a supervisor is a micromanager and it negatively affects the bottom line, poor customer service because of the poor output from the staff, because of their micromanager, give tips and advice to one, the micromanager, and two, the staff who works under such an environment. So I'm going to repeat it. The supervisor is a micromanager, and we just spoke about leveling values, the shareholders, and things like that. The supervisor obviously could be under a lot of pressure from the direct CEO, and now putting that on you, the staff. So the question is, if a supervisor is a micromanager and it negatively affects the bottom line, poor customer service because of the poor output from the staff, because of their micromanager, give tips and advice to one, the micromanager, and two, the staff who works under such an environment.
Okay, that's an interesting question, Francois, and I must say very challenging. But I think we need to characterize what micromanaging is, right? My understanding is that a supervisor will not be giving the staff a chance to do their responsibilities, their work, right, based on their training, right? And they would be, hovering over the staff saying, do this, don't do that, do it like this, and so on and so forth. Now, that creates an atmosphere of lack of confidence in the staff. And the staff, therefore, do not feel motivated to produce, whether it's products or services, which is the business of the enterprise. In that case, I think that the supervisor should step back, or somebody should mention to the supervisor, whether it's the staff who feel they can be outspoken, or it can be another supervisor or the manager, to say that clearly your approach will not deliver the results that are required. Because there is a saying in business, if you build capacity in your employees, then you will have happy customers. And if you have happy customers, you have a welcome bottom line for your shareholders.
Yeah.
So training is then a big component in ensuring that staff understand what they're supposed to be done. You should have a budget for training. Training must continuous. In today's climate, as against when I worked at KFC, we did training early mornings before the restaurant opened. Today, you have training being done online, being done virtually during a staff's lunchtime or their downtime, and you get certification for the training that you do. So as you know, at KFC, you get a certificate, and a star certificate or an all-star certificate, which certifies that you've received training, but you have developed the capacity to work at the various stations throughout the restaurant, whether it's in the back of the house or in the front counter, in the drive-through, or wherever it is. You are capable and can deliver the standards as to how work should be undertaken and how products should be produced.
Right.
And how service should be extended. Yeah. So that would be my tips to the supervisor. Also, the supervisor needs training also, in the sense that the supervisor has to be trained how to lead, how to become an effective leader, in the sense that the style of the supervisor's leadership must mean that the staff will follow the supervisor in doing what is required. And also the supervisor must be able to persuade and encourage staff, right, to deliver the performances, to do what is required in terms of the objectives of the company. And obviously, the supervisor must be an effective communicator. The supervisor must be able to speak in a certain way that doesn't turn off the staff, but encourages the staff and motivates the staff and so on. So, these are some of the things the supervisor must explain what is teamwork, because without you working as a team, you will not achieve what you can achieve if you are a team. So all those things are important.
Now, what if you as a CEO, right? You given the supervisor the training, they've gotten all of that, but yet they're still determined it's my way and no way. Then should they then receive warnings? Should they then because obviously it's going to their actions, or sorry, their character, their attitude actually is going to definitely hit the company in such a way that, hey, so this will be the time that you as a CEO will have to tell the supervisor, either you're fired or we give you warnings. What would be that next step really for that supervisor itself?
Well, if you're operating in Antigua or in the Eastern Caribbean, obviously, if you're the CEO, you must know your labor laws inside out. So you know that there's a process, you must undertake before you fire somebody. So you have the usuals, first warning, second warning, third warning, and then, termination, notice for termination, and so on. But pragmatically, you've invested thousands of dollars to train a supervisor who also, spends much time in training the staff. So if you were to immediately fire, you then have to spend a lot more money again to train a new supervisor. And that means a complete mobilization. So it is cheaper to say, obviously, I as the CEO have made a mistake. I have not provided you with the training for you to turn around your style, and to really get the job done, really motivate the staff to produce, the standards that we require. So, you would invest an additional period in training the staff. But if the staff does not make that movement, to adopt a new attitude, a new approach, a more positive approach to delivering the goals and the objectives, then after you would make a decision, whether they stay or whether they go. So dismissal is not an immediate thing, unless if it is such that it warrants dismissing them immediately. So if they were involved in violence, or if they were involved in theft or whatever it is, so that would be the approach. And I suppose over the years, HR people have developed lots of other initiatives, to assist, CEOs and owners of companies in dealing with these situations.
Right, okay. So this leads now to work style ethics. Should any supervisor or manager or CEO impose their work style on an employee? Example, I may like to work afternoon shift until evening, or another prefer morning shift until afternoon. My energy is highest at a certain time of day. You have another is I like to work with my desk clean, but my supervisor prefers to work with his desk piled with books and papers. So if he sees my desk clean, he thinks I'm not working and gives a bad review on my quarterly valuation. I can give a good example, another example, that for me, I like to be involved. I like being involved. For somebody else, they prefer to just stand back. And because of me being involved with my work, with the customer or whatnot, somebody else might be like thinking, oh, I'm going overboard, or or the word that we like to use in the Caribbean, overdoing it. I'm not overdoing it. This is just me. How then can you, Mr. Shillingford, advise CEOs and everyone in particular, listen, everybody's style of work ethics different, but at the end of the day, it is contributing to the bigger picture of the company. What advice can you give to that?
Well, on the basis of the examples you gave, I think each of them are treated possibly differently. So the first example you cited, that a supervisor may have a preference for the time of day where they worked.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, if you're the CEO, you want to create harmony in your organization. And, it may not be just one person that prefers to work nights, right? And there may be some people who would like an opportunity to work nights. So if that situation confronts you, then you have to establish a situation where everybody who may want to work nights must get an opportunity to work nights. So you do like a rotation, right? To say it is not that only one person must work nights for the entire week, or based on the schedules, and there are other people who'd like to, so you have to evaluate those risks and arrange your schedules, so that you achieve harmony. It may be that based on let's say the family or personal preferences of people, they may want to work days because it's convenient for them to be with their family, with their children at night, help with homework and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there may be some single people who have no responsibilities of a family. It's okay for them to work night. Mm-hmm. Or it may be that there's somebody that is working in another job and looking for an additional job and prefers to work night, to be able to earn more money.
Yeah.
So you have to analyze what is at play, what are the circumstances, and you do it accordingly. Now, the other example you gave was about your desk being mm-hmm. piled up mm-hmm. with documents and files and so on and so forth. It's a question of perception, right? And a desk piled up doesn't give the impression of organization or cleanliness. Also, it may be that some companies, have policies which say that, files should not be left out of a filing cabinet, at for any length of time, you must be, you know, if you retrieve a file from a filing cabinet, you use it for a period of time, you put it back, because other people may need access to the files. So I think the CEO or the company sets policies, right, to secure their assets, the files. And you know, what you really want is for whoever it is to be producing the results that you want. You know, so it's okay to take the files and have many files on your desk. But at the end of the day, it cannot be that you have many files on your desk and you're not producing reports that are required on time. You know, so you as the supervisor, the manager, you know, you evaluate that. But at the end of the day, you know, people are cluttered up. The documents, papers, files are everywhere. You can't find them when you need them. So there needs an intervention in that situation.
Right. That is true.
And okay. what was the third example?
The third example was I'm hands-on. I like being involved, but then the supervisor is not that I prefer to stand back, but thinking that you are involved too much and believe that you're overdoing it. And then you get a poor valuation and kind of like, why would I get a poor valuation? This is my style. You know, that's one. That's the third one.
Well, I can tell you that when I worked at KFC, or when I was a director at the Antigua Hotels and Tourism Association, that when we did interviews for new staff, right, that, as I said and intimated, that you require staff in the back of the house, the people who do the cooking of the products, the preparation of the products, and you also have people who are on the front counter, people at the drive-through, right? So each area has its certain styles that if you have good aptitude, you know, in preparing food, right? Then fine, your results will demonstrate that, because, you know, we could tell as supervisors, if in going about the restaurants and we sample some of the cooking of whether it was the original or the spicy, we know exactly who was in the kitchen, because only certain people had that ability to prepare that chicken so that tasted so good. Also, if you're at the front counter, if you're going to be at the front counter, I interviewed lots of people who came to me, and as we would say in Antigua, I would say in Dominica, they sit in at the interview and their face is waxed. You know that expression. Yes, no smile, nothing. I mean, I had to tell many people, Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, I don't think the KFC job is for you, but I can recommend you to some other area where I have friends who are looking, you know, for people to work for them. Because if you cannot smile naturally and wow somebody with a wonderful and beautiful smile, KFC wasn't for you.
Obviously, it's a no-no, yes.
That's right, it's a no-no. So also we would have liked effervescent people that kind of wow the customer. Their smile, their demeanor, their deportment, how they dress. You know, a customer walks in the place, your enterprise, and the customer looks at the demeanor of your staff and they say, wow, I made the right decision to come here today. You know, so you need these people, you know, that want to be involved. Yes. But you have to be involved within the standards of the company, right? Yes. And, you know, as we would say, if you add in value, right? And if you're contributing to breakthrough in terms of making the customers spend more, then that's what you really want.
Right, that is true. That is true. I remember Mr. Melford Nicholas, who is now Antigua's Barbuda Minister of Information Technology. Right. And one of the things he always stressed on in our trainings, every morning, he will have a whiteboard and he will stress on the importance of your demeanor. You're going to meet a customer, or even if the customer come into you, how you greet them. Even before you greet them by saying hi, just your appearance. He always, and then he had Mrs. Althea Carty. We used to call her boss lady.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes, we used to call her boss lady because we said she was the woman that had the boss. Yes, that's how we said it. So Mr. Nicholas will go to her to let her speak, particularly to us, the women, because obviously he's a man. So, you don't want to be like, hey, look at your attire. There was something that he did. I know, as soon as I said, don't forget it, Mr. Shillingford. Every one of us have voicemail settings. He purposely called everybody's cell phone, listen to how the greeting of the voice messages are, unknown to us. And the next day, he said, just like that, before we went into our various cubicle, whatever it is, he just said like this: listen, y'all need to change your voice messages. Some of y'all is sleepy, some of y'all have crickets in the background, some of y'all this, some of y'all that. And we were like, wait, when did he call? But what happened, what he did it from a different number, then also from his number. And he do it at a time to see how committed are you to your employment? How committed are you to your job that even after 4 o'clock, your cell phone is still on? Because it's all a part of customer service. You just don't know which customer gonna need your help at the moment. And I was like, oh, wow. Mrs. Carty, she was like, sometimes she was straight up. I have my family. I can't be bothered. My customers know me. My BlackBerry at the time was a big thing. My BlackBerry is there. So whenever I see the messages, Listen, sometimes it was just like, oh my gosh. But at the end of the day, it was all about getting the work done, getting trained. You're getting trained along the way, and you're making the customer happy and content at the end of the day. One last example that I can give you, there was a client, and I don't know why Mrs. Carty gave me this particular client. It was one that everybody ran from. Even the CEO is like, oh boy. And it so happened that his bill was over 10 cents. And he made a big brouhaha. And Mrs. Carty, she sat down with him in her office, and I was there. And went through the bill, went through. And then she's like, and she called his name, over 10 cents? Really, mister? And then she went into her pants pocket. She couldn't find anything. Then she went into her drawer. She went to her purse and she said, bam, look at 10 cents. As a matter of fact, I get more than 10 cents. This is for real. So, and the thing is, of the way of her leadership style, right? It might be a bit aggressive, but it was done in a way that at the end, you had to love her. You had to love her because she ensured that you were kept happy at the end of the day. So this goes down to my final 2 questions, which is in customer service as well, too. Innovation and rethinking marketing and experimental strategies. We know the color, the logo, the marketing slangs that held real high in the hearts of everyone in KFC. And it was a finger licking good, those kind of stuff. And the colors is red and yellow. is it important to maintain one slang or have catchy phrases change often to suit an environment? Example, we have new breed of children that will be the adults of tomorrow. And should we keep on changing the slang just to entice the new generations, or we just keep one slang, one logo, well, not the one slang and one color just going right through?
Well, you will appreciate that KFC is a global brand. It has over 10,000 restaurants all over the world, even in China, in Pakistan, you know, everywhere, South Africa. Now, at one time, the catchphrase for KFC was finger licking good. But over time, they determined that, well, we don't want to continue to project this idea of, you know, finger licking, you know. So they changed to taste good, you know, or feeling good, you know. And, you know, so the brand does what you call global research to work out, you know, what's best for it in terms of projecting it. Now, other aspects of brand image involves that you have the same colors, right? You have the same signage, you know, and it means then that from a distance, if you're driving and you're 500 yards down the road, you can see that huge tall sign of the KFC bucket and recognize, oh yeah, that's a KFC. Or if you're driving past and you see the colors of the, you know, the what you call it, the beige color, the reds and the browns and so on, you know it's the KFC. And anywhere you go in the world, you would have recognized the brand. You know, so branding is important. Also, culture is important. You know, that you know that KFC, wherever you are in the world, must taste the same, you know, although that may not be true, but, you know, generally, you know, it must be, you must get a good experience after you go into a restaurant of that type. And I must say that this is the general approach of all the fast foods like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, you know, and, you know, that's what marketing is about, you know. You know, your brand must be recognizable. In fact, at KFC, we would have a library of standards, you know, standards for products, standards for hospitality, standards for cleaning, standards for decor, standards for how a building must be, standards for a kitchen. But it is not standards that remain in perpetuity because, you know, your market evolves. Like you say, your children of today are the customers of tomorrow, you know, and you have to be constantly doing robust research, you know, to meet the desires and satisfaction of customers of whatever age. Right,
that is true. That is true. And I agree with you. Somebody in the chat said that Antigua tastes the best. That is so true. I have traveled and Antigua only is the best. I'm like, no, I don't. I think we have more than 11 herbs and spices. I honestly believe so. And that's a very valid point that you made there just now, Mr. Shillingford. We evolve. I like that phrase. The children of today will be the customers of tomorrow. And a lot of times we don't think about it. We don't think that way. So we just thinking it's just about the now and not recognizing who we're going to be dealing with. One of the stuff that I always tell myself, and I've said it many times when I was working at Cable Wireless Line to my colleagues, and I've said it to Mr. Charles as well too before, many times. The customers will be us, the staff. how staff is treated, they can either be your customers or be your competitor. And I believe it a lot. They can either be your customer or your competitor, because if they're not treated well as well, they will find means and ways to compete with you with different things, okay? All right, so I see a hand up for a question from Alicia. You can post them, sorry. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, good day, everyone.
Hello.
I had a question. I was listening to the feedback that was given. Let me make sure I'm getting the name right. From Mr. Shillingford about, the supervisor that was micromanaging. But I have a question about a supervisor or just management on a whole, and that is very passive or just nonchalant towards work, unethical when it comes to certain things, in my opinion. So they rely heavily on the lower level staff to make decisions. It appears as it's our responsibility to make decisions, reform, any innovation, any sort of leadership management. It's been shoved down on the lower staff. And when you would ask for, I guess, like the guidance or the leadership, or even sometimes the compensation for filling in or doing the role of a supervisor, doing the role as a leader, they would use the term or the clause like in your contract that says any other duties.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're being asked to do is inform like you're leading. So say for example, the supervisor is out and somebody is being asked to fill in as a deputy supervisor for like a 2-week period without any notice. HR isn't being notified about it, or you're the acting supervisor, you're the acting manager for that period, and there's no change or compensation that's given to you for that period. Or this has happened to me, you leave and you're going on vacation, you're being asked to like answer emails while you're on vacation, and I had to reinforce that I am taking a vacation, and I had to say I am not going to answer my phone or answer an email while I'm on vacation. Or you're sent text messages, WhatsApp messages, like the entire department is run on your shoulders, but you're just a basic entry-level staff. How would you deal with something like that? When you've gone to HR, you let them know, these are the duties that I'm doing. It's not in line with my current job description, but they would phrase it as, oh, you're just performing any other duties, when you're actually doing the duties of either somebody that's in management or you're doing the job sometimes of 2 persons. How would you kind of deal with a situation like that?
Well, I assume that if where you're working is unionized, right? This is an issue that you can invite your union to do a intervention on your behalf, right? Because if you are undertaking duties of a supervisor who is absent, then, I mean, based on your union agreement, it should be recognized that you were asked to do work, higher than your job description. Now, if your supervisor is passive and does not demonstrate leadership, then if she's getting you to do her work and come up with all innovations and decisions and solving problems, then obviously she is using you, because it is her duty, to work with you, and work with the staff and actively contribute, to making decisions and to, introducing innovations and solving problems on the job. So the supervisor can't get things done without you. So you have to determine, whether you will tolerate that. And if you do not want to tolerate that, then what do you do to put an end or progress on a solution to what is happening, right? And as I say, you need to be very careful, because if you say you went to HR and they say that falls under any other duties, it clearly doesn't fall under any other duties, right? Any other duties means that any other duties a certain line staff would have been able to do, you know, but you cannot do duties of what the supervisor is responsible for, and it is any other duty for you, you know. So it means that the management, you know, has to be engaged, you know, to resolve that issue, you know. And as I say, you have to be careful. You don't want to be victimized. So you need the protection of your union if you're unionized, you know, to deal with that issue.
Thank you so much for that response, because I realized what was happening in certain arenas, like everything, it would be, go ask Alicia, or a new project or something that would come into the department, and it is automatically known as my responsibility to figure out the processes or come up with a new way to solve a problem. And I had to come to the point that I'm not a computer. First thing, I'm not a computer. So I cannot be solving all of the responsibilities of an entire department. And if so, I should be compensated for doing that.
Yeah.
And it came to the point, because that's not my personality. I would want to, you know, be creative and help, but then it becomes draining when it's just being on one part. So I resolved to just doing exactly what it is that my job description says, or just resolve this is not something that I should be doing, because it becomes taxing. Because when I went, so I'm gonna look into more that option of, you know, seeking representative from like our shop steward. Let it know this, if what's the actual job description of my role, if it is that I'm taking on more now, because offering customer service while you're doing that, if having to deal with that, it becomes, as I said, draining and taxing, having to deal with something like that.
That's right, because you need to be careful in the sense that if you're being asked to perform duties outside of your job description or outside of your grid, right, or your skill, then it is possible then if you're not producing all you were responsible for, you could be victimized or disciplined for that, whilst you were being asked to undertake other duties somebody else had to undertake, you know. So I mean, it's a question of knowing your rights and, you know, encouraging discussions, you know, and indicating that there is a problem. And, you know, in business, they say that a problem is a problem if there is a cost to you, you know. So if there's going to be a cost to you, then it is a problem, you know, and it has to be resolved.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Alicia. I will now open the line for questioning. I see Garfield Gonzalez, his hand is up. You can ask a question, because Mr. Shillingford also has to leave just now. So there's a question hand up from Mr. Garfield Gonzalez, and I see hand up for Mr. Dwayne Simon as well too. Okay, Garfield, go right ahead.
I know he has to leave. It's just a quick comment. In response to Alicia, one day, labor officer said to me, I encourage employees to walk with 3 Bibles. And the 3 Bibles are the Holy Bible, the Labor Code, and the company CBA. He said, any situation that you find yourself in, you can find the answer in that. He also said, don't take it for granted that the company knows how they should act according to the Labor Code and the CBA. A lot of top management, unfortunately, don't even know how they are supposed to operate. You're not going to fault them, but by you being educated and have the information, you can sit with them in a constructive way and tell them, let's look at what you're asking me to do. If you ask me to do it as a good employee, I will, but it comes along with certain, what should I say, gratification or compensation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Gonzalez. Very pointed comment. And I would say that my experience at KFC was such that when I took over the management, I recognized that I had never managed an organization and an enterprise like that before. And we were due to negotiating a new industrial agreement with the Antigua Workers Unions. And I said to myself that the way the previous agreement was written, it is as though as KFC and the union and staff were adversaries, with each other. And I said to myself that we can't be adversaries, we have to be partners in the business, right? The shareholders own the business, the managers manage the business. But
Right.
without the employees, without the staff, we cannot achieve objectives for each other. We guarantee terms and conditions of employment, including wages and welfare and benefits, and, we need the union. So I was successful in getting the union for us to rewrite the what you would call the opening remarks of the agreement, where we treated each other as partners, And what I was able to do later on is to even contribute to the union's operations. Like if people wanted to go to study, I would help to give a scholarship from KFC to the union for members to go away and study.
Wow.
And if the union was undertaking an anniversary pamphlet, I would take advertisements to show to the union that we have good faith between each other, and that I have no fear to come and tell me or put me on notice if something was going wrong. And equally, I ask in turn that if you have any wild card, strike or that is not justified, the union assists me in getting people back to work, and it worked quite good. We had respect for each other, and we considered that we were both partners in the business.
Right. So so I scratching your back, you're scratching my back at the same time. Okay.
But it's more than scratching back, it's showing mutual respect for each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Mr. Simon. Unmute yourself and you're right.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Shillingford, for a great presentation. My question is, if there is a young person in the region, in the sub-region, and they had let's say a capital injection of maybe somewhere around 500,000 to 250,000, would you recommend that they invest in a franchise like KFC or another US-based franchise, or should they try to build up something from scratch?
Well, I don't know what the costs are now for establishing a franchise, but the way KFC works is that in each territory, in each island, or in each area, they grant a franchise agreement to one single person, exclusive franchise agreement to one single person. If the market is big enough, from the determination of the size, that there is room for another franchise, because that franchisee, that is the owner of the franchise, is not expanding to take market share that is potentially available, then KFC internationally would grant a franchise. So you would have to engage with KFC, send a letter of interest in establishing another franchise, satisfy KFC that there is scope for another restaurant or another franchise in the market. They would then have to consult with the existing franchisee to determine, are you prepared to expand? And if the existing franchisee was not prepared to expand, to put additional restaurants, then it would consider, establishing a franchise, another franchise in that market. Now, remember what KFC wants, when they grant you a franchise, you sign an agreement to pay what is called either royalties or fees for being a franchisee. And it's a percentage of sales and so on. But so KFC, in their wisdom, would not want to another franchisee if there was a risk of, both going under, and therefore they have no opportunity, in earning from that market. So it's a delicate, proposition. You need to be astute in terms of how you communicate your desires. But at the end of the day, if an individual, an entrepreneur, budding entrepreneur, has access to capital in the amount that you state, it's good to do research to find out, what best can I invest my money into. These days they say that cash businesses are great, but cash businesses also require a lot of supervision because there are a lot of risks involved. So my advice would be to, do examination of the market, find out what some good opportunities, for investing, and what kind of returns you would make, whether in the short term or in the medium or long term, and doing your business plan, and your enterprise analysis will give you the answers. But at the end of the day, in business, you take a risk, and only risk takers make a lot of money.
I
hope I'll be able to
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shilling.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I like that. And this is my final question, and then I'm going to transition over to Dr. Jennifer. John C. Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. With all these questions that have been asked, what is your definition of leadership? What was your definition of leadership then? What is your new definition of leadership today? If you were to speak to someone that is the younger you, who is thinking like you did before. We just heard from Mr. Simon, who's speaking about investing. What if, let's say, Mr. Simon is the young, you're speaking to Mr. Simon right now?
Mm-hmm.
What is the definition of leadership you can give to him now versus what you had or thought leadership was before?
Well, when I was leading, and I'm still leading, I understood that sometimes leaders, without it, they emerge as the person that other people will follow. And it doesn't only have to be in business, it can be in politics, or in sports, but when I did training with KFC, the trainers, developed for us what is what you would call a global appreciation or a global definition of what was leadership. He said that leadership is being able to have people follow you. You have a demeanor, you have a style, you have an approach to things that people feel comfortable following you. You have the ability to encourage people to action, to produce objectives. You have to be able to persuade people to action. You have to communicate effectively. You have to know how to speak. Your choice of words and your phrasing must not put people on the defensive or turn them off, or put their backs against the wall. And you must be competent in the area of what what you are engaged in. You know, so you must be trained, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know that in my studies that you had some people who were very bright and they didn't know the subject matter, but they were bright enough to say, well, I am not a leader, I'm an owner, you know? And maybe what I should do is go and select people who can get what I want done for me and let them do it for me, right? So an owner is also a leader, but they're not actively leading in the sense that they engage with the management and the employees, or they're not, you know, management and so on. You know, so today, what I would say is that a leader, in addition to everything we must said before, what we have said before, must be innovative. Because there's so many variables now in business. You know, you have to be able to, you know, use your skills and your competence to, you know, innovatively and robustly match, you know, what you do to the mission and visions of an enterprise, of a company.
Right.
You know, so I would add innovation. I mean, only innovation was required when I led at KFC, but it is even more, you know, required now, given that, you know, the amount of problems we have around the world, you know, the amount of challenges that businesses undergo, you know, are faced with around the world.
All right. Mr. Shillingford, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. And I've learned a lot. Honestly, I've learned a lot from you to say, we've known each other for so long, I still learning from you. I really am, you know? And a million thanks, a million thanks, a million thanks.